Hey guys, it's Sam. Sinking? My chair is broken. Anyway, this is probably where it's going to settle, so I'm not going to bother it again. Welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be discussing why I left my beloved rings and moved back to the Hobonichi Weeks. Before I get in depth into the video and turn the camera around to share the planners themselves, I do want to just say straight out that I have been the kind of person my whole life that if something is in and everybody is doing it, I run as far away from it as possible. So to answer the question that I've been asked a few times now, if I'm back in a Hobonichi Weeks because it's popular, the answer would be 100% no. To be honest with you, I thought that the popularity of the Hobonichi products had died down a little bit, so I'm not going to leave it if I'm hearing that it's popular. I've got to tell myself that. So I'll give you just a couple of examples. When I started watching Stranger Things, it became hugely popular, but I was okay with it because I stumbled on Stranger Things before I was seeing anything in social media where people were watching it. So I was scrolling through Netflix one day and I saw that it was creepy looking, and I love creepy things, and so I was like, oh, this looks creepy, so I started watching it, was instantly hooked, and then I had been a couple of episodes in before I started seeing it anywhere, and I was okay with watching it because I didn't discover it because it was popular, if that makes sense. When that whole was it Tiger, Lion, something, the Netflix series that everybody was watching at the beginning of the pandemic, I've still never watched an episode. I've seen the memes and all of that. There are probably several reasons why I wouldn't want to watch that anyway, but I didn't watch it because everyone was watching it. And I've just always kind of been, I don't know, when I was in high school and everybody was teasing their hair and had big bangs and all of that, I had long, straight, one length hair. So it's against my nature to just jump in to whatever is popular. I found Hobonichi really before it was really popular in the United States. I was only seeing a couple things about it in my Instagram feed, was very intrigued, thought that this simple system might be what was really best for me, and then kind of came back out of it. Personal rings, I went back to when pretty much nobody was using personal rings. So I just felt like I had to get that out there, that I don't usually jump on a bandwagon. The only time I have the fear of missing out is if I see somebody and they are very consistent in their Instagram feed and they're always using the same thing and they just seem like they are so at peace. And then I have the thought, could that bring me a kind of peace that I don't already have? So those are the kinds of things that motivate me, and I just wanted to get that out there. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera around, and I'm going to kind of give you a side-by-side of the two different planning systems, and we're going to talk about why I love each, and then kind of talk about why I made the switch and why I see myself switching back in the future. So if you're interested in that, keep watching. Okay, so hopefully I can get my lighting to play along here. I'm trying to work through some issues with my new iPhone, which I didn't realize had some issues on some devices. I think I have fixed my settings. I hope I'm not wasting my time. Hopefully we will be good to go here. So let's get into it. All right, so before me, we have a personal Moterm, which is the planner that I received just as I was moving out of rings. Not sure if I'm going to keep this or not. I'm not keeping every single ring planner that I have because I realized that I don't really find the joy in the collection that I thought that I would. And I've broken it down into, these are the colors that I use and these are the colors that I don't use. And so I'm only going to keep the things that if I go back to rings, I will use that. So I also have here my Hobonichi Weeks, and this is in my Giglio Appunto Slim and this is the Muppet Fozzie. I just attempted an unboxing of this yesterday. However, on some devices, the coloring was crazy. I could turn it back on with the warning that like Mac users may see it like poorly, but I don't know if I want to do that or not because then people are complaining. So anyway, these are the two systems that over the last, I don't know, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years, I've really kind of stuck between these two kinds of things. I've dabbled a little here and there. I had a time where I was like, okay, I've had enough of all planners, and I was just gonna like go buy the cheapest, most ridiculous, inexpensive planner from Target and just make it work like my little agenda in high school did. But the paper wasn't nice, it had patterns that I didn't like, and so I did at one point recently buy a couple of blank notebooks, and I decided I was going to do bullet journals, but it always comes back to I'm too lazy to fill in all of that myself. So I had been in personal rings, I think January to about October, November, maybe September, October. And then when I was suddenly out of work, I had like this big crisis and I went briefly into trying to do a Hobonichi A6. That didn't work, went right back to rings, and I still felt kind of restless about the whole situation. So what I love about rings, you can easily switch your covers. You can easily switch your covers. You can keep all of the same insides and change your look and change your feel pretty easily. You can switch up your tabs, you can switch up your dashboard, switch up your cover, and it feels like you have a whole brand new planner. I also love that you can change your mind about inserts really quickly. So if that planning style isn't working for you in rings, then you just switch your inserts. If you have information that you want to take with you from year to year, you just leave that section in or those pages in, and then you replace all of the pieces that are date specific. And so it keeps you from having to transfer information here and here and here and here. So I do love those things about the rings. The rings don't bother me in and of themselves. I know that a lot of people are very particular about that. I don't have that problem with them. I don't have that issue. I think that it's a great system, one that I do see myself at some point going back to. I love the way a pocket ring holds in my hand, but I always feel like I don't have enough room to write certain things. If I have to write out a list of something, I don't want it on 3 pages when I can have it on 1. So I have found throughout history, as cute as pocket rings are, that personal rings are the way to go for me, and that is what, if I go back to rings, I will come back to. So I really love those things about rings. For me, the issue that I had with the rings that caused me to leave this time was that I was just having trouble finding exactly what I wanted in my planning pages. Let me go back to that week that we were on. So I was putting my known appointments here. I did like having a tracker. I did like having my work schedule right here at a glance. And then I kind of went between what we had for dinner here, a snippet of a memory, maybe the steps taken, those kinds of things. And then this was my spot for like the running to-do list. This has been the insert that I have been the most consistent with since the year 2020 began. And it works pretty okay, except for that I usually have a whole lot more on non-specific days and less going on a specific day. But I was finding myself running out of room here, maybe not having enough to put into these boxes, or feeling like I needed to put something in this box that should have gone over here. And so I went at first in the quest for a new insert, and I did order one from Cloth and Paper, which did finally arrive, but I already had some doubts about whether or not that would work for me either. So I was in a moment of irritation with the planner community, which I've talked about in other videos, just the kinds of things that I have been seeing in my feed and all of things that bring me like anxiety. For me, the planner community is a place that I go to like get away from all of the junk, and I felt like all of the junk was invading that like happy place. So I was like ready to throw my planner away. I was so angry about everything, and I didn't want to anything. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna just go from scratch here. And that's when I went to Target, tried to find like a off-brand, generic, whatever planner that I could change nothing about and just write down what I needed to do. But I didn't find anything that I felt like I would stick in more than an hour. So I was like, okay, what has worked in the past? And it may sound really dorky, or kind of full of myself, which is really not what it is. But sometimes I go back to older videos of my own and I look for what was working for me in the past and why that was working for me in the past. And in the end, I decided that the Hobonichi Weeks I couldn't mess around with, but it does have capability to make it your own. So I knew that in this little planner, I could write down day-specific tasks, non-day specific tasks. I could draw out a tracker. I could track the weather. I knew from previous experience that I could fit my work schedule in here, and that I had note pages to keep notes on, and that I had my monthly calendar, which I think are a necessity, and ways of tracking things. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try it. And I honestly really felt like it would be like, well, this is nice, but remember the rings, and I would kind of go back to it. And I almost felt like getting back into Hobonichi Weeks would be like enough to get me out of my funk, and then I would just go back to rings. But that isn't what has happened. I have found the simplicity of the weeks, which is what originally drew me to the weeks years ago, is stress-free. The only thing that I don't like myself about the weeks is the decision of whether or not to draw out my things in the back, which I have done. I'm going to be sharing that actually in another video because I know that I don't want this one to be extremely long. I do struggle with making the list in the back because I never am happy with like the way that it looks, or I feel like I made a mistake and it irritates me to no end. But really the cons for the weeks is that sometimes I fight with my pen. Now, my planner pen test page gets to be so gross because I don't know, I fight against friction is the pen that I go with. No matter what system I'm in, it seems that I always end up back with a friction pen. So I may have hundreds of pens here in my house, which is unfortunately true, but I always go back to the friction. And so thinking that I don't want to use a friction pen and being kind of stifled with the other kinds of pens that I like because of the paper and the smearing problem, that's like always like oh, but you can't use other pens. But friction is fine for me. And really over the last 10 years plus has been my favorite pen of all time. So that's not really an issue. The other issue is that you can't add or subtract at will like you can with rings, but there is something to be said for that as well. In the moment, I think, well, I don't want that page in my notes. Like that was ridiculous that I was studying this or I thought that, but it still becomes a memory, right? If I was writing notes about the Enneagram and I thought that I had been interested in thinking that I was this type or that type, and then I later found out that that was incorrect, well, maybe that would serve to help me in the future when I was looking at the Enneagram again and I was like, yo, this is what made you think that you were this type. So that could be said for a lot of different things. It becomes a memory. And then I went back and forth about whether or not I wanted a mega or a regular, and this is a mega. I do have my regular. I have been back and forth with that, but I have been discovering that I am liking kind of having like a daily, these are the things that you need to do because I don't have that space here. And I have taken the advice of Melanie at Addicted to Planning, and I wrote down here what the page number was that I have these notes on, and I'll be able to quickly look back and forth and see what was going on that day if I look at this week. So, other than that, you know, the other things that I used to think were negatives of the Hobonichi, I don't really think that anymore. I used to be really annoyed at the cream paper, but once you're in it for a while, that kind of like doesn't become an issue or becomes a non-issue. It's just something that you don't notice if you're always in the cream paper. The other thing, gosh, I can't even really think of anything else that I think, well, maybe the size. So it is kind of an odd size. It's very narrow and it's long, but it works. So it's not an issue. Of course, right now I'm feeling the bulk because I insist on having my planner and my wallet to be combined as one. If I didn't have that as like my happy system right now, this would be a very easy, thin system to carry, Mega Weeks or not Mega Weeks. If I took it out of this cover, I would be in a very, very thin system. But I like to have my cards with me. I have my Bible reading plan for the year printed and tucked back here ready for tomorrow. I'm able to carry some cash. I have stencils and dots and, you know, stuff that keeps me happy. So if I took out all of these things, my planner would be a lot thinner. And I don't love a chunky planner, but this still, in my opinion, isn't chunky. I don't have plans to like really bulk this up. I use highlighters a lot or markers. Right now I'm putting together my color coding system for Tombow, and I use my pen. And I can see myself using a little bit of washi here and there, some character stickers here and there, but for the most part, it's not crazy. I really think that it's a great system to use. It kind of causes you to have planner peace in a way. If there's something that you don't like about a particular week, then you can change it. So let's look at the weeks that I have so far. I know from using it before in the past that I track the weather, not for any other reason than that I like it. I'll put appointments here and then maybe something specific that happened that I want to remember for that day. And then my running list of to-dos. This week I did an incoming mail where I would normally have a habit tracker. Because it was Christmas season, I kept that. I kind of changed this spot up. I don't know if I'll keep that. Right now I'm liking it. So I put my work schedule, what we ate for dinner. And the following week I added steps to that. Kind of loved this. Still very Christmas related because the next week was Christmas. And kept with these things going again. And then for this week, I added my habit tracker back in and was experimenting with different pens. My friction wouldn't have smeared, but that one did. So within this very simple layout, you can choose lots of different things to do. And that's one of the things that I really love about this planner. If you wanted to flip it and plan vertically, you can do that too. I do enjoy horizontal planning for the most part. If I could say like two things that could improve the Hobonichi Weeks for me personally that are kind of like they're not deal breakers obviously because I'm in this planner, but would bring me more peace would be, I would love for there to be grids on this side because I really try to see the grids on the other side to keep me even, but sometimes it still doesn't work. And to remove these quotes on the bottom. That would be like fabulous for me. I would also really love it if the lines were a little bit bigger. I know a lot of people though write really, really tiny. I don't naturally write tiny. So writing in a Hobonichi Weeks has forced me to learn to write smaller than I want to. I've experimented with writing with like 2 lines, which feels more natural to me, but then I can't get half the information. Well, I guess it would be. I can only get half the information in that I would have had the lines been bigger. And I realize that would also be true if they made the spaces bigger, but it just, I have to really think about writing smaller when I use this planner. So there's that. Otherwise, it's a fabulous system and I've been really happy in it. Either way, Rings or Hobonichi Weeks, I love that I can get my cards in and throw my phone in my back pocket and run out the door with this and have basically everything that I need. I do have certain things that maybe I don't want to put in, and I do keep a bunch of different Post-its in there for that, or I'll tuck Post-its here, there. I mean, in the end, I could put Post-its pretty much anywhere and just have them with me so that I can throw down a little bit of a note and take it with me. So if I needed to write down a very brief shopping list, I'll write it there and take it out of my planner entirely, stick it on top of my purse or on my phone as I shop, so I don't have to keep referencing my planner. So my reason, I guess, to wrap things up that I moved back to the Hobonichi Weeks is that it is one of the 2 systems in the planning community that really feel like me. Over the years, I've tried or dabbled with many other systems, and this is really the one. These are the ones that work for me, and I do find myself going back and forth between the 2. Please don't think that I will never go back to Rings. I know that a lot of times people like to follow channels just because they use a specific system. I've said before, and I'll say again, I don't personally do that. If I'm following somebody, I always get inspiration for their planning style or things that they're doing in their planner that I can incorporate back into the system that I'm using. If you are disappointed that I'm not using Rings anymore, I would say I'm sorry, but I'm not, because I just do what feels right for me. I'm authentic to myself. I don't go by what I think other people are going to like or what will be more popular. I don't use something just to be able to share it. I use it because I use it and it's working for me day to day. And that's just a personal preference. I always like to say that this is my planner piece for now. I am very happy planning in the Hobonichi Weeks. If that changes, you'll know about it pretty quickly. I don't usually like start planning secretly in something else and then share it. It's usually like, oh no, I'm having a breakdown. I need to try this system out, and then I tell you about it pretty much immediately. So stay tuned if there are any updates, but I do see myself staying in the Hobonichi Weeks for 2021. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new around here and don't want to miss out on future videos, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye guys.